So hello and welcome everybody. We are now live here in this special event that you have all joined to meet engineers from the organizations that are CERN, ESA and ESO. So I am about to introduce you to our special guest today. We're joined by Michèle Peron from ESO. Hello Michèle. We're joined by Kyriaki from ESA. Hi Kiki.
Hello.
And we are joined by Pavlina from CERN, where I also work. Hi, Pavlina.
Hello.
Hi. So thank you all for being with us today. So we've got an hour together to inform our participants about our organizations, about the engineering opportunities that we have in our organizations, about what we do. We're going to answer the questions. We received some upstream. Now, just for the people watching, if I switch off my video now and again, it's to actually improve the experience for those who have poorer connectivity, and what matters is that you hear from the engineers themselves. So if I disappear, worry not, I'm still there. So first of all, I think one thing that's really important is for us to understand who are around the table. So Michèle, you started out in mathematics and have had a long career in software engineering, and today you are the Director of Engineering at ESO. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your pathway?
Yes, thank you very much, Anna, and thank you for inviting me to be here. Hello to everybody. So I guess you want me to start about my path rather than ESO itself, isn't it?
Yes,
correct,
we will start with our individual journeys for people to understand who we are. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, indeed, I studied mathematics. This was a long time ago because it was something like 35 years ago. At that time, so I studied statistics in Paris, and I was interested by astronomy. So I was looking at the skies in the evening. I had a small telescope, and I took the opportunity then to do an internship in one of these organizations which does astronomy, and I started to do software development, and then I applied to a position at ESO here in Munich, Germany, and I joined the organization as a software engineer then in 1989, which is something like 32 years ago. I'm still there in this wonderful organization, and we will have a chance to talk about it, and maybe I will have a chance to say why I'm still here at ESO. Of course, in 32 years, the organization itself has changed, and I had also the opportunity to get different level of responsibilities in the organization. I was software engineer until 2000 or something like this, so for more than 12 years. And I'm now Director of Engineering, so in charge of around 200 technicians and engineers. But there have been a lot of small steps in the middle, because I moved from being software engineer to group head, department head, and then director. Well, so this is, in a nutshell, my 32 years at ESO.
That's wonderful. In a nutshell, 32 years. But I think that's already inspiration for all those watching of the various routes that you can take, because we've already had quite a few questions on that we're going to explore further this afternoon. But you're a perfect example of how you can go through different stages, through passion, through curiosity, to get to where you are today. Thank you, Michèle. Kiki, would you like to introduce yourself and your work at ESA?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the invitation and for this nice opportunity to be here. I think it's very interesting. So for me, when I started thinking about what job I will do in the rest of my life, when you are 16, 17, and you have no clue, and I thought, okay, it will be something with computers, because, okay, at that point, I saw that there are many people using computers, so probably at one point they will break down, and wow, I will have a job, I need to fix them. So I studied electrical engineering. That I realized that, yeah, maybe I need to do a little bit of more specialization. Then I went to microelectronics, and then eventually my PhD in optoelectronics. And step by step, by coincidence, but also because you meet or you are involved in the right projects, then your career is somehow formulated. Then I ended up going for my postdoc. So after my PhD in Belgium, because originally I'm from Greece, so I studied all my basic studies in Greece. In Belgium, I worked in the Center in Eindhoven. And then I was working a lot with ESA, but at that point in time, ESA was my customer. So we were doing projects for ESA. I was never thinking that I would ever be able to work here. Yeah, never say never. At the end, I was hired in ESA, so now I'm working here already for 6-7 years, and I was up to recently. I was working in the team of the Optoelectronics, and now I'm the head of the Optoelectronics section. So, in a nutshell, it's not easy, but okay, you just pick the right moments in your life that you think are the most interesting for people. That's how I ended up.
But that's just the whole point of this this wonderful discussion, is that now we have a second example now discussing electrical, electronics, optoelectronics. Now you're the head of the section, and really an interesting career path that has taken you from one country to another and to another. So it's also very much the topic of today's conversation in terms of mobility. And last but not least, Pavlina, you're a mechanical engineer at CERN. Can you tell us more about your journey?
Yes, okay. So I would also like to thank you for the invitation. And so my journey starts, it's not a long journey because I started at CERN 4 years ago. And before I was doing the double degree study in mechanical engineering in Czech University and Arts et Métiers in France. And I think that it was it. When I choose to go to the mechanical engineering, I thought it's exciting. There was not a lot of girls, and also the technology. There's a lot of possibility to do what we want afterwards. And in fact, in the beginning, I wanted to be some econom or someone who will deal with the finances and stuff like that. But then I wanted to know what I will buy or what I will work with. So I decided for the technology. It was the first step. And then with the double degree study, I had to go for the manufacturing. And manufacturing, there's so many things that you can manufacture. And I wanted to focus myself on the orthopedic implants and 3D printing. So I did all the projects on this. And then I discovered CERN. What CERN is doing was the innovation and new technology that you can work at CERN. And after school, I decided for the application for fellowship in, as a mechanical engineer in main CERN workshop. And it was also 3 years in early fabrication and working on the R&D projects in niobium machining, niobium polishing, development of the manufacturing of the LIC cavities, acceleration parts. So it was something that you can not see at school, you cannot see anywhere, and it was really awesome. And now I am a mechanical engineer in technology department, and I work on the supermagnet design. So I also changed from the manufacturing, and now I work on the design. So I'm like one step before the manufacturing.
So another great career path, this time from the Czech Republic. You went via Paris, you said, also for your studies in France?
Just close to Lyon.
Close to Lyon, okay, so further down the southern France, and now at CERN, based in Geneva, Switzerland. So now that we've met you all, it would be very nice for those who are watching to get to know the organizations, because everybody has an image in their mind of what ESA does, ESO, CERN. But in your own words, Michèle, how would you describe ESO?
Yeah, so ESO is the smallest of the 3 organizations. So it's an international organization like ESO, CERN, and ESA. We are being supported by 16 member states, and our mission is to enable science by designing, building, and operating observing facilities, so astronomical observing facilities on the ground. So we don't send anything to the All, but we build telescopes which are then being operated in Chile. So our observing facilities are all located in Chile, in 3 different areas, so 3 different observatories in the Atacama Desert, so in the north of Santiago. So we do projects. I mean, this is an important part of our work. So that's why also we hire, and we have quite a number of engineers and technicians at ESO. So we, as I said, we build and design, telescopes or antennas. And again, at the end, the goal is to enable science, like to allow the nice pictures that I have in my back here, which is a spiral galaxy which was observed at the VLT, so the Very Large Telescope, which is a collection of 4 8-meter unit telescopes located on Paranal. This was one of the first pictures which was taken with one of the first instruments in '98, so this is quite a while ago. It was a spectacular image. I was present during the commissioning of the instrument. I was still working as a software engineer. So software engineers at ESO work as part of multidisciplinary teams. And I had the chance to be also participating to the commissioning of the instrument and to be doing data reduction over there. So this is what ESO is about.
So I am sure that people over and above what is written on your website have really had an insight from your perspective, which is very rich. So we've now heard about ESO, whose telescopes are located in Chile, but loads of projects going on. Kiki, how would you describe the European Space Agency? People often do get the two a little bit mixed up. So we've got the European Southern Observatory, so this is ESO, and then now we're going to talk about ESA, the European Space Agency. In a nutshell, how would you describe it?
Okay, so I think the easiest and shortest explanation is that we are the NASA of Europe, because everybody knows NASA, but unfortunately not everybody knows ESA, which is a little bit a pity. So we are the gateway of Europe to space. Actually, I will use the example of Michèle. So this nice picture that she has behind her is what we can also do, but we do it with telescopes that we send into the space. So we don't do it from the ground, we do it from the space. And the same with the picture I have behind me, which is a photo of Earth, is taken from the Sentinel, one of the series of our satellites that are looking to the ground. So I start a little bit the other way around, what ESA is doing. But so we do space observation. We did the Rosetta, for example, that it went a few years ago, and I think it attracted a lot of attention in the public and in the media. But we do also observation, it's monitoring of the climate, of changes, of floods, or whatever has to do with Earth. It's about communications, it's about the ISS that is running around us all 24/7. The space station, I mean, and we do human exploration. And how do we do that? So it's an agency. Of course, everything is under the umbrella of peaceful exploration. So this is the main, of course, target of ESA. And is to use the space for the benefit of humankind and for the member states. We also run with 22 member states of ESA, and we have also collaborations or other partner countries. For example, Canada will have some collaboration. It has been founded in 1976, but before that there were also previous another names for ESA. So it's more than 50 years of experience in space. We are located mainly in Europe. Somebody would think it's only Europe, but it's not only. So we have the headquarters in Paris. The main biggest establishment is in Netherlands, where I am located, a little bit outside Amsterdam, where we have the technology center. So this is in ESTEC, but we have presence in Italy, in Spain, in Germany, where is also the center for the astronauts, and also in other areas, for example, where we are sending the satellites out, which is in North America.
So I think that's beautiful, because you've just shown how global these organizations are, both ESO and ESA, funded by many member states, located throughout the world, and with worldwide collaborations, which I think is wonderful, because it's really part of what we want to put forward as messages today, that, these are global organizations that everyone can take part in terms of engineering disciplines. You talked about peaceful exploration. It gives me a very nice segue into describing CERN, because I also work for CERN in the HR department. I'm not an engineer, but I'm an engineer of a different kind, we will say. But my mission is to describe CERN in terms of the attractivity of as an organization. And our mission is Science for Peace as well, in terms of we call this event Reach for the Stars and Accelerate Your Career. So we're more with Pavlina on the side of the accelerators, and CERN's mission is to provide a range of unique particle accelerator facilities for the scientists and physicists to do their research and to discover all there is to discover about the origins of our universe. So like peaceful exploration, like these wonderful telescopes that are helping us go out into the universe and understand beyond the stars, we're going to understand at the micro level and at the nano level and at the atomic level the constituents of matter. So that's CERN in a nutshell. Pavlina, as you're a mechanical engineer, what would you complement in terms of describing CERN for the audience today?
I think that what's interesting to know that CERN is not only about the physics. It's the main mission for CERN, but when I describe CERN to my friends, I say, okay, we are working for the physicians, but physicians has a great idea about something, and then they need some engineers to really make it happen. So all the acceleration and all the facilities and installation should be is done by the engineers, technicians. So CERN is really the state of art of the technology. We work on the innovation of the new technologies for a lot of developments. And I think that it's very important for the public also to know that.
Absolutely. I think more and more now candidates are looking for purpose. They're looking for organizations which really have a noble mission, a mission that will match their values. So when we're speaking of values, when we're looking at the bigger picture, Michèle, how would you describe ESO's culture in terms of working there?
Mm-hmm. So, first of all, I think one of the important things for ESO, which is certainly true for CERN and ESA as well, is that we are working in a multicultural environment. I mean, this was mentioned before. I mean, first of all, we are being supported by 16 member states. Our host, Chile is Chile, so our host country is Chile. We have at ESO something like 40 nationalities at any time working, but then we have again big collaboration. So as I said, we are building telescopes. Typically the telescopes are being built in collaboration with the industry in the member states mainly, but the instruments then are being built by consortia of institutes also in Europe or elsewhere. So again, many different nationalities, many different cultures. We are multidisciplinary in the sense that you can only build a telescope if you put together engineers of all disciplines. So software engineer, control engineer, mechanical engineer for the large structures, optical engineers for the mirrors, for instance. So this is a little bit the environment.
And sorry. No, go for it. Carry on.
And I think certainly, you know, why ESO and why ESO is a special place to work. We have in common with ESO and ESA that we are enabling science. So we are doing things for something which is big and which is important. And I think this is also what counts for all of us at ESO. That, you know, we are contributing to this somehow. So it's a very small part, but we are all contributing. And if I may, Anna, because you were mentioning Nobel, you know, before, today the Nobel Prize for Physics was granted, and it was granted to a German astrophysicist, so who is actually working here in Garching, close to us, and for the studies that he has made on very massive objects in the galactic center. and he has been doing observations using our facilities. So we are all very proud because, again, I mean, we want to remain humble, but, you know, our work is a small contribution to this.
Yes, and I think you've made two very good points that I'm sure all three organizations share, is that there is this noble mission and the pride to work for these organizations, because it is about peace, it is about achievements, scientific advances, and all CERN, ESA, ESO share in that multidisciplinary, multinational, collaborative approach for furthering our understanding of science. Those are great messages and really presents ESO as a place to work. Kiki, if you were to describe ESA and its culture and what you would gain from working there, what would you say?
Well, I would think that everything that was mentioned before is valid also for ESA. So I was, while Michèle, you were talking, I was thinking that, oh my God, she took all my thunder. So actually, it's exactly the same, because we are, and I think for CERN the same. So we are multicultural. There is a lot of teamwork, team-oriented, and we have to work like teams. Otherwise, it's not going to success. The projects are very, very big. So even if you think that you are in your small office isolated, at the end, your contribution is very critical for a big thing that will fly in the sky. And that is part also of the pride that it creates for us working here, because you see, you have to be very result-oriented. You have a lot of problems and challenges to face, small level, bigger level, depending, of course, of where you are involved too. But also the feeling of achievement and the satisfaction that you get is big. And also the cultural environment, the fact that you make new friends, and it's a very inspiring work, and you are surrounded by colleagues and people of different nationalities, and of really, it's very intellectual stimulating, I think, working here. I like it a lot.
Wow, those are wonderful messages. And as you say, we are really joining up all these parts, components of this idea of pride, of working side by side and really creating networks that will last throughout our career. So there is a personal enrichment because we're all contributing in whatever small a part to the mission of the organization. And Pavlina, in terms of CERN, you've been through graduate program. You're now, you're now a fellow, and you're working in the mechanical engineering. What would you describe CERN's working culture like?
In CERN, it's now difficult because you took also all the things that I am the last. But okay, CERN. I think what I love about my job is the diversity of the also background of the people. Not only the cultural and that people are from all over the world, but also their background in if it's the technician, if it's the engineer, if it's the physicist. It's really great to collaborate with the people and the specialists in each domain. So even the projects are really separated, but with the same goal, and I think that it's perfect. When I spent my fellowship in machining, I was working on, let's say, just small R&D project, but it was for a big crab cavities that a lot of people were working on, and it's important just to see all the global aspect. And now when I'm like the staff mechanical engineer and I work for the already equipment in the machine, I go to the accelerator, and it's so motivating to see also the results of the old work that people are working on. It's awesome.
It's wonderful to hear that word "awesome" as you close, because it's often what people translate through the testimonials that we publish on the website, and I'm sure it's true of ESA. The audience will have noticed that Michèle has left the room, but will be back shortly, no doubt. We also have a few technical glitches which can occur with the link and the connection. I'd like to take a few questions from the audience, and I'll turn to Kiki for the first one. Is it possible to work for ESA without being from the Eurozone?
Okay, yes and no. To work for ESA, there are different ways, because there are different types of positions that we have at ESA. to be a staff member, so directly hired and working with having ESA as your employer, it's possible. You have to be from the member states. However, we have on site, I mean, my colleagues here next door, we are working together, and they are contractors, which means that their employer is a different company, and there are no rules about member states. So yes, it is possible. And I invite people, if they are interested in working for ESA or for other organizations, not only to look directly on the websites of the organization, but to look globally, because there are other opportunities as well through the industry or through the contracting companies. So that's why I say yes and no.
Yes and no, but that's a very good answer. And welcome back, Michèle. It's great to have you back. Oh, don't worry. So we were just talking about if it was possible to work for ESA if you were not from the Eurozone. And actually, the same question was asked for ESO. Do you have to be from the Eurozone to work for ESO?
Let's say we give preference to people coming from our member states, so it's not even necessarily the Eurozone, but we don't exclude any nationality.
Okay, that's wonderful. And for CERN, I have to say that I'm going to put my camera back on. For CERN, it's exactly the same as ESA. We have 23 member states and a further 8 associate member states. So for what concerns the employment contracts with the organization, be it as a graduate or as a staff member, you have to be a national of our member states. But we do have opportunities for non-member state people. And like Kiki said, the very good advice is to look beyond CERN, beyond ESA, maybe beyond ESO as well, in terms of what contractors work with the organization, because that's another way of collaborating. So we would have another question. We're going to be taking a journey on different themes today. Someone asked, I would like to know if age is important. So I don't know which one of you would like to take that. Maybe Michèle, you'd like to start on that question?
I would answer by saying that for me, age is a dimension of diversity, and we treasure and would like to have a diverse workforce. So the same applies to age. I mean, on one side, we need to have people who have experience and who know the organization and experience with the projects to bring in it, from old projects to the new one. But we also need to have younger people who bring in new ideas to the organization.
Thank you, Michèle. I think that links me on to a question I wanted to ask Pavlina in terms of age, because Pavlina, you've joined a team which is very age diverse, and as Michèle says, and Michèle is the chair of the diversity committee at ESO. Pavlina, you've joined this very diverse team in terms of age, in terms of cultures. How is the knowledge transfer ensured between people who are probably a lot older, a lot more experienced, to the younger generation?
I think that at CERN it's really special because first when I come to CERN, I was afraid a little bit because I wasn't expert in the domain. I wasn't expert in the acceleration fabrication, and I didn't know what CERN will expect of me as a young graduated girl. And it was awesome. At first month, I spent about knowing what the projects are, and then my colleagues, even technicians, even the engineers, even supervisors, everyone was willing to help, and it was very important. It was the first years as a fellow, and now as I'm working in a smaller group on not one equipment, but one specific type of equipment, the knowledge transfer is more important because there are a lot of things that will go to the retirement nearly, and their know-how is so important to be transferred to younger colleagues or any other colleagues. So now I really profit from I really learn a lot of things, most of things possible, able to retake the work they were doing 30 years.
And that's the beauty of it, is that the younger generation coming in is also bringing something and this is the beauty of this diversity dimension. Kiki, for ESA, is age a factor?
Well, I think age is a factor in general. Yes, of course it is. But on the other hand, you can see it in the way what type of application or of job are you looking for? Obviously, age goes with experience. So I would say that yes, it matters, because if you are applying for a position like a project manager in a very high demanding position, probably you will not get the job because you don't have the experience. I mean, they're not going to judge that you are 20 years or 25 years old. And the opposite goes, of course, if there is an opening for young graduates. I doubt that if you are 50 years old and you still find it interesting to work, you will have priority compared to other candidates. So yes, it matters. On the other hand, I would say it does not matter, because ESA offers possibilities to all people of all ages. So we cover from young graduates up to very experienced and senior engineers. So in that sense, no, age doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you very much. That links me on to another question that we've had, which is linked to the aspect of experience that you've just talked about. What about the degree? Someone is asking, is the degree fully mandatory to work at ESA, ESO, or CERN? So, Pavlina, do you have an opinion on the obligatory aspect of the degree?
It depends. So, for example, for the technician positions, you don't. You need to just. If I'm not correct, just correct me, Anna. But I think that you can choose the domain, and you can do without the degree some work you really like. Recently I saw one video about a technician, a girl in the vacuum that CERN did, and it was really awesome. She was so happy to work there without any degree, and I think that not the point to have a degree. It depends then on your level, but you want to work.
Yeah. So I'll complement what you're saying there. It's true that when we speak of degree, we think of bachelor degree, master's degree, PhDs. We have a lot of opportunities for technicians at CERN and a great training program for technicians at CERN. So more of the vocational diplomas that are so important, and apprenticeships today, which are really important for the organizations that we are. Without our technicians, we wouldn't be anywhere. We often say that they are, the unsung heroes of CERN. So a little special shout out for technicians out there. What's the situation respectively in ESA and ESO in terms of degree requirements? Michèle, would you like to take this?
I think it's very similar to CERN. So we have both technicians and engineers. So technicians also don't have necessarily a master's degree, for instance. I mean, for the engineers, indeed, most of the people come with a master's degree. But, there are also exceptions where people have been gaining the experience of an engineer and working 10 years in the industry, for instance, growing from becoming a technician to an engineer. So those kind of things also happen through hard work. But in many other cases, yes, the candidates who apply, and actually we typically write as a requirement university degree or equivalent. So equivalent meaning, all the things which can replace a university degree. Yeah.
I'm really pleased you've mentioned this or equivalent aspect, which we also apply at CERN, because it's true that more and more we value the experience acquired throughout a career. It can't always replace a degree, that is a fact. But I think it's important for the audience to know that more and more our organizations are broadening beyond the academic level to the experience acquired, which is also very important. Kiki, what's the status in ESA?
I think it's more or less the same. So indeed, we have technicians that they don't have a degree, or they have the basic the bachelor degree, and this is fine. I mean, they do a very nice and very useful work, and we really depend on them. So, and there are also applications and opportunities for young people who are in the process of getting their degree. So, like they are before their bachelor, and they are internships with some countries. We have special internship programs also established, and also for IGT, which is the young graduate trainee. you can program, you can join on that even just before you get your bachelor degree and then finish it, or during the course that you have a PhD, you can also do it as a type of sandwich PhD, as we call it, that you do partially here and partially in the university or a postdoc. So there are different opportunities for different levels of applicants and applications.
I think that's a great message as well, is to really highlight the breadth of opportunities from the student to the graduate to the professional in all our scientific organizations. It actually leads me on to another question that we've been asked. It's true, we're talking a lot about engineering here, and someone writes, most vacancies posted by CERN, ESO and ESA are for engineering profiles. And are you also looking for IT professionals? So my first answer to that is that's computing engineering. It's also engineering. Or are these mostly outsourced, which is a key component of the question. So what's the situation for IT and computing in ESA, Kiki?
Absolutely. And actually, when I heard this question, my mind was a little bit out of the box. So not only IT and computing, but how about contracts? I don't know how many people are listening now, they come from this background or they have this type of studies, but I can tell you, we have a huge department here that is dealing, they are lawyers, so they are not engineers. We try to communicate with them. So, I mean that when you have so big organizations, you cannot think that they can only function with only engineers. We have all the type of disciplines, and obviously IT and software and all those things there. I consider them engineering, so I don't even make the distinction. But yeah, obviously, we have a lot of opportunities for different types of competencies.
And what about in ESO, Michèle? Are there many opportunities for computing, hardware, software engineering? You, as a software engineer yourself, would you?
Yes, I think that, I mean, at least 30% of the engineers in Munich here are software engineers and IT people. So we do indeed outsource also software, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to do it inside. But we have an important core group of software engineers, because it's of course important to keep this key knowledge somehow. So not only, you know, the understanding of a program language, but the understanding of how the telescope and the instruments are functioning and the links between the other disciplines and so on. The same applies to IT, so the real IT, I mean the system administrations of the computers and so on. There again, we have a small group of staff who are owning, let's say, the architecture and the design of our IT infrastructure, and we outsource the operation then to a service contract.
Okay.
But the answer is yes, yeah.
So that's very interesting for the audience. Is that so? Okay, so beyond the physics, beyond the astronomy, etc., beyond the engineering, there are also IT opportunities. I'll just mention for CERN. CERN is the birthplace of the World Wide Web in 1989, a hub for grid computing. Computing is really, really heavy at CERN in the sense of all the opportunities, be it from controls to data acquisition to software development. And now we're entering a new era, which is that of quantum computing. So this is something to watch. It's going to become big as well. So someone's been asking about machine learning and all these things that don't yet exist, but will exist one day. So I think the message from our three organizations is that yes, there are very many IT opportunities. So that's great. In terms of I'm going to link up a little bit to the pandemic now, because I'm linking up a question about IT to several questions we received upstream about software work or IT engineering. Do you consider developers of that kind to work remotely? And I wanted to ask that question to Michèle.
I guess the question is whether we consider people working 100% of the time remotely. Anna, this is correct,
right.
Huh?
Yes.
And the answer is no. The answer is no, because again, I mean, also the software engineers are part of these multidisciplinary teams, and they also go from time to time to the lab or to the workshop, you know, to commission the software with the rest of the instrument. So we are in a time, I mean, this is a COVID time, is of course special, where we are not every day in the office, except for few people who work every day in the labs and the workshops. So we spend something like 2 or 3 days at home and the rest of the time in the office. But I I mean, you know, the teamwork is part of the DNA of the organization. So I do not think, and I really hope so, that we will not move to a scheme where people can work 100% remote.
Yeah, I would fully second that. And absolutely, people think now that telework is going to become a little bit more the norm. I think that, as you said it beautifully, it's part of our organization's DNA. Collaboration lies at the heart of what we do, and a full remote operation would not be possible. What's the position in ESA, Kiki, for the software or IT engineers? Can they work remotely fully, or is there a restriction?
No, I agree also with Michèle. It's not part of the culture, and it's not part of even the rules and regulations of having working only by home, teleworking or remote working. Obviously, we had to adapt to that situation. But we also have labs, and we also need the presence on site. So I don't think we will ever end up in this situation, and I hope we will not. Of course, there is some flexibility, but because we have a lot of people who are regular commuters. So we are expats. I am an expat. I don't come from here. I go home, of course, not every weekend, but we have people who do this commuting every week, that they change country to visit their family. Mm-hmm. But completely teleworking 100% on normal situation is not something that it is in our culture. No.
No, absolutely. And I can imagine, Pavlina, when you're a mechanical engineer and you need your hands in the machine, that's even less the case, right?
Yeah, it's right. But it depends also. Now I work on the design. So during the first months of the teleworking, I was able to work efficiently with the design I had to do. But then with the restarting of the machines, we need to go down also for even to take some measures to prepare another fabrications. So I think that at CERN it's not the same approach as ESO and ESA. It's a part of our culture to be there, to be able to really work together, and also for the if I say for the IT or the people are working on the programming, I think it's also important for them to go to see what they are really working on, and not to always stay behind the computer. And it's better for the motivation of people, I think.
I would tend to agree with that. The understanding the user requirements does necessitate some interaction in person. You can't really replace it, can you? I'm aware of time ticking by. You know, we've already been 40 minutes talking about many aspects of working in our organizations. I'm going to turn to something more general, and it concerns the main competencies that the organizations are looking for. So, you know, clearly we need technical competencies in the discipline that we're applying for. But Michèle, what are the more soft skills wise? What are the other competencies that you think are key for ESO, for example?
Yeah, maybe let me talk about the key skills which are important in particular for the engineers, even though I think that this applies to all categories of staff. The ability and the will to work in a team for me is essential because you do projects in a team. So this is essential. The other competence which I think is very important for an engineer is the ability and the will to solve problems, because every day, I mean, there are new problems to solve. And the associated then, you know, working hard and perseverance in the sense that, you know, we work on high-tech projects. Sometimes these kind of problems have never been solved and we are failing, and people have to have a capability to start again and try again.
That's a beautiful answer, the aspect of resilience. And if at first you don't succeed, try again, we say. Mm-hmm. That's great. And I'm sure the audience will appreciate that, because it's very little known what goes beyond, you know, those little soft things. It's nice to hear you actually explicit them in your answer. Kiki, what would you say are these principal competencies that ESA would seek?
So beyond the technical competencies, I think the integrity and ambassadorship is very important, because you have to understand that you are representing a big organization and your decisions, your saying, your reviews, your approval for payments or for following up contracts. It's not you. It's a big organization dealing with European payers, taxpayers' money, and you have all the vision. So you have to be clear in your mind that what you do, and you are, representing ESA. Work and the cross-cultural sensitivity that you need to have because you're working with other people, you're collaborating, and also with your customers or with the industry. You have to make sure that you do it efficiently and with nice and fair way, with fairness. And then personally, as I think individually, you need to be self-motivated to have this. You have to be driven, as it was mentioned also by Michèle, for the results, for problem solving, and keep in mind the big picture that it's behind even the small tasks that you might have in your table.
That's great. It really does join up with what we're looking for at CERN. So in order to complement that, because we really do look for profiles who are, interested and passionate and problem solvers, resilient. But this, for me, what I often say to candidates is be curious. Really, curiosity is key. Motivation is one thing, but when you're curious, you want to try things. And I think one of the beauties of my experience at CERN, and I've been here since 2004, is to witness all these people who really want to try, and failure is accepted. It's not about failure. We can make mistakes, we learn from mistakes, and we keep building, and that's how we progress in this multicultural, this multidisciplinary environment. Pavlina, what would you complement to that in terms of soft skills that are key?
I would just first compliment to this curiosity, because it's true when you, for example, have just an idea, it can work, just try this, maybe I would like to try, and your supervisor, okay, try, just do it, and let's see the result. I think that it's awesome. Just you can try what you want for the research, and you can also develop your new project. And for the skills, what I would say, it's a flexibility also with CERN, because you have to work with a lot of people, with a lot of people from different culture, ages, different technical backgrounds, and also the language, because we have French and English, and there's, let's say, 1/2 of people speaking, everyone speaks English, let's say, but in the technical environment, most of people are speaking French. So, for example, for the newcomers, they have to adapt. They have to sell their idea not only in English, but also to someone who's French. And that is also a good motivation.
We have a word for that. We actually speak CERNglish, which is really cool. We have our own language. But that's a great transition to another question that we've been asked that I'd like to put to Kiki and Michèle. You've spoken about language, Pavlina. The person is asking here, apart from English, how important is it to speak the local language? And given that you have so many locations, I think that we can have a few good answers around this. So first of all, what are the official languages for ESO and ESA? Michèle, would you like to begin?
So the official language of ESO is English. The headquarters are located in Germany, and the observatories in Chile. So we're talking about German and Spanish. I would argue that for people who want to come and join ESO and stay there for a few years, it's good to speak German, because I think it helps to feel also at home in Germany. If you don't need to have the help of somebody when you need to call a taxi or do anything else. So for me, yes, to be part of a country and to feel at home, it's important to speak the language. I have to admit that I do speak German, but I don't speak Spanish, which actually is also important, at the observatories, because a big fraction of the workforce at the observatories is Chilean, and the language that they speak, of course, is Spanish there. So it's a little bit the same as Pavlina said for CERN. I mean, but many people then do speak French there.
Absolutely. Isn't it wonderful that you can, in addition to coming to learn new skills and develop your own engineering skills, for example, you get to learn new languages. That's pretty cool. What's the situation at ESA, Kiki?
Well, French and English are the languages that if you speak them, it's fine. All the rest you can learn. if you want, depending on the country where you are, but it's up to you. Where we are located here in Estek, in Netherlands, they speak Dutch in the country, but Dutch people, they speak very good English, which means that even if you want, or if you learn Dutch and you want to practice, you go outside and everybody's replying in English, so it's not a problem at all if you don't speak Dutch. For different establishments in different locations, like, I don't know, in Italy or in Spain or in Germany, it all depends on the cultural things and how much you feel yourself that you want to integrate. But strictly speaking about work, you need to speak French or English. And I have to add here the fact that one of the trainings, because ESA is offering a lot of trainings on site to all the people, is about language courses. So if somebody would like to learn the French or Dutch, or I guess other languages in other countries, they can also take advantage.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. It's also the case at CERN, and I imagine also at ESO that supporting newcomers in the integration language courses are, of course, essential, as are other technical trainings where applicable. Speaking of integration, learning the language, we're talking about mobility now. We're hiring from countries throughout Europe, if not over the world. In terms of relocation support, we have had questions before the event. Do ESA, ESO provide relocation support? I'll just say it's a big yes for CERN. Of course, the mobility is supported. What's the situation in ESA, Kiki?
There is a relocation office indeed, and they are providing support because especially in the first months, they can guide you with finding a house or all the things that you need to do with the city hall, how to register or not. So that there is a relocation support. But I have to say that okay, you need to have your own personal, of course, and motivation to find your ways out. And because we are all experts, you have a lot of support also from the colleagues and from the people around you, because we help each other. We have been there.
Absolutely. The collaboration goes beyond the collaboration in terms of disciplines. What's the situation with ESO? Do you actually actively support relocation?
Yes, so we actively support. We use the service of a company actually to provide relocation support to people who are joining big organizations. So this means support for finding a flat, so a place to stay, but also with the first administrative burdens that one can get when you move to a country like Germany, which is, to get registered, open a bank account, and all those things which are so important.
That's really good support that's provided by our organizations. We've got a few minutes left, and I've got a few closing questions. I mean, I'd like to say to the audience, we've received an awful lot of questions. Some of it are quite individual, so personal to one situation. So please don't hesitate, once this live stream is finished, to go back to the booth to chat with the recruiters who are there to answer your specific questions. And we do apologize that we can't take them all. There is one here that is close to all our hearts, I have to say, that you will have noticed that there are 4 women around the table today. It's no coincidence, and it is a coincidence. This is all about diversity. The question the person has asked is, how many women work in our companies? So I'll quickly start off with CERN. Currently at CERN, there are 17,000 people who work every day at CERN, but all are not staff members. We are a mix of statuses. 12,000 or more of these are users. But across the board, we are plateauing around the 20% mark. And this is part of our biggest driver, is to attract more women into the engineering domain, into the technical domain. And I'm sure I'm joined by all of my colleagues around the table. Michèle, you are therefore the chair of the diversity committee. Is that correct? What would you have to say, first of all, about ESO representation in terms of female representation, and then around the diversity angle?
So at ESO, we have around 700 staff members, so all categories included, so including fellows and students. And I think we have around 25% of women, so all staff category and all category of job. If we look at the astronomers for physicists in the organization, we have a good number, because we have achieved a number of, I think we are above 25%, which is quite good. But in engineering, the numbers are still very low. I mean, so we are below 10% still, even though we have recruited few women in the past years. And as you can imagine, it's very close to my heart. I mean, to try to encourage more women to apply to our positions, and also then to have more women in our groups and directorate, because I am really convinced that this will add a lot of value to the organization.
Hear, hear. Very well said. And I'm sure that Kiki will rejoice with this comment as well. And on behalf of ESO, what would you have, Isa, what would you have to say in terms of gender representation and messages?
I think we're more or less in the same order of magnitude. So we are, as I mentioned before, we have the staff and the contractors. In total, we are, let's say, 5,000 people. We are 2,500 staff and probably as many contractors, more or less, in all the sites included. And then in terms of staff, the representation for women is around 30%. But that counts, of course, all the disciplines. If you go to the technology, to the engineering domain, that is around or below 20%. And that's why we find it very important to see that more women applying, and especially on the junior level, from young graduates, and so that the gender representation will, step by step.
Because it starts with education, doesn't it? It's attracting more girls to STEM. I mean, I'm just going to turn to Pavlina here. You talked about your career in mechanical engineering, and you were going to work in orthopedics to start with, and you've ended up at CERN working on some of the largest accelerators and equipment. Why did you choose to study that?
As I said before, it wasn't the first goal that I wanted to study, or first domain, but it was one idea. One day I said, okay, why technology? It's something that interests me, mathematics, physics, everything. And I really like the technical drawings. And so I said, okay, I will go for it. And from my experience, once you start to understand what it's about, all the engineering, and that you can really find your way, that I think that everyone can find something that it's really domain. And this is the most important thing, to have like more women in all in the technology and in all engineering. But it starts with the education. Now, when I go back to in Czech Republic, we were 7% of girls in the first year in mechanical engineering. But it's really difficult to have after that more women. So I think that it's the first step to motivate more girls for engineering, and to really try to find a way that can encourage them.
Thank you very much for that message. We've only got a few minutes left. I've got a few nice closing questions for each of you. What would be the key lessons learned, or the key advice that you would give to applicants or potential applicants watching today? So, Michèle, could you kick us off on a couple of words of advice for people watching?
I would just say, go and do it. Just go and apply to the positions. Yeah.
Lovely.
Don't hesitate. Trust your abilities and just apply.
Go for it.
Go for it, yeah.
And Kiki, what would you say on behalf of ESA?
The same. I mean, ask, learn, and don't hesitate, and do the step, and get out of your comfort zone, because once you do the first step, the rest is coming. But I understand that for young people being in their country, and then you are used to a specific situation, and then moving somewhere else, it sounds huge, and it is. But one step at a time, and then you can reach it. If you don't do
exactly,
the step,
if you never try, you won't know, will you? And Pavlina, what would you have as advice to potential applicants?
For me, it would be the same, but just don't be afraid that you are not expert now. You have new ideas. Every idea is appreciated in the organization. So
just apply and go for it, yes. And I'd like to bring back into all of this the message to potential applicants that, yes, show your passion, show your curiosity. For women watching who often do self-censor if they don't meet all the requirements on a vacancy notice, go for it, try. If you don't try, you never will know, as my colleagues have very well said. To close the interview, I'm going to ask you one final question each. Is, Michèle, what do you love about your work?
What I've always loved is exactly to be part of a bigger thing. And even though we have, constraints, like we have to deliver projects on schedule and on time, still to always have a possibility to grow and to bring new ideas in.
That's a beautiful message. And Kiki, what is it that you love about your work?
The fact that I have to deal with so many different things at the same time, but if you think it over, then at the end they all end up with the big picture. So there are days that I'm completely exhausted and I say, why do I do that? But there is a good reason. It's because they all small pieces of a puzzle, and this satisfaction and that you get, and also from the thing that you see from your colleagues, and from the appreciation that you get from the people and your customers, the industry.
Beautiful message. And Pavlina, what do you love about your work?
For me, it will be complexity. Every day is different. Every day is something different to do, and everything, even the people are different. All is for one goal. More goals, but yeah.
And what I love about my work is working with people like you all for doing things like this, where we're all promoting the wonderful missions that we have in our organization, working in multicultural settings with very, very passionate and interesting people, and learning every day something new. But on that note, it's 4 o'clock exactly. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Michèle, huge thank you to Kyriaki and to Pavlina, to everybody who has been watching. And we really hope that you've enjoyed watching this, that you've learned something. Please don't hesitate to come back to the booth to carry on chatting with the recruiters from the 3 organizations. But a huge thanks to Kyriaki and Michèle and Pavlina. And I'm clapping even though we're
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Kiki. Thank you, Pavlina.
Our pleasure.
Okay, the broadcast has ended. Well done.
Okay.
Thank you.